Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm Josh Guesman along with Wendy Thomas, and on today's show we're going to get you ready for the LA Galaxy Sunday matchup with the Houston Dynamo. Along the way we're going to talk all about Robbie Keane, Steven Gerrard, Giovani dos Santos, lots of stuff going on with Steven Gerrard, and we're also going to be joined by LA Galaxy Associate Head Coach Dave Sarakin. We've got a bunch to talk about. We're glad you could join us, so don't go anywhere. You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
while consoling the victims of your own crimes with selfish little lines. Extra, extra, read all about me. Is your life not enough for you?
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Now here are your hosts, Josh Guesman and Wendy Thomas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Josh Guesman, Miss Wendy Thomas with you once again. Glad to be back after a long, what seemed like forever, international break. We've had some different shows already. We've had LA Galaxy Insider and I talking about different things earlier this week, and now we will attempt to get you through and up to this game against the Houston Dynamo coming up on Sunday. So who knows how long this show will go. We're planning on it being possibly an hour, but if it goes a little shorter than that, then that's fine too. Wendy, welcome back to the show. How's everything going?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Probably better than Steven Gerrard right now, I would imagine.
Oh, definitely better than Steven Gerrard.
I'm in Los Angeles and he's in Liverpool, so I think
Sure.
that already I'm winning.
Weather-wise, yeah.
Weather-wise, it was a little
And
chilly.
also hamstring-wise, from what I understand.
You know, my hamstring does feel pretty nice right now. So yeah, hamstring problems for Steven Gerrard. Doesn't seem like anything's going his way. And we're going to talk a lot about that, as well as be joined by Associate Head Coach Dave Sarakin coming up in a little bit as well. You know, it's been an interesting sort of international break. Obviously, had Giovani dos Santos go off with the Mexican national team. Yay, Gio.
Yay, Gio!
Yeah, Gio did great. Started both games, which is great to see him back starting. He had a goal.
Good to see him back with El Tree.
Yeah.
That's where he really belongs.
It is, and he had a goal and an assist in two Mexico wins. So that's good. LA Galaxy-wise, I think we've talked about it so many times, Wendy, that we talk about Giovani dos Santos and his sort of, at least my perception, that he needs to be happy to be playing at his absolute best. And what you're seeing from Giovani dos Santos is that he's happy and he's playing for Mexico and things are looking good for him, and a happy Gio is a good for the LA Galaxy, right?
That is exactly what I want to hear. I want a happy Gio. I want a Gio playing well. You know, he's young. He has a big, long contract with the LA Galaxy. He's definitely like the future. I think of him as the future. So I'm very happy to see him productive and happy with El Tree.
Yeah, it's a very good thing for the LA Galaxy, and like I said, you know, it just seems to be that in this dark season that we have had, and I will say that it has been dark. It's been dark.
Very dark.
Yeah,
Extremely dark.
Yeah, it has not been happy. It's not been happy in La La Land. In fact, there's been lots of problems, it seems, and lots of things going on. But Giovani dos Santos is one of those good things that has happened this year, and you know, the fact that he leads the team with goals and assists, and he is, whether or not you believe it or not, at least in the MVP race talk. I think lots of people might disagree with that, but I will at least say he's in the discussion.
I don't even care about MVP talk. My concern with Giovani dos Santos, because I didn't really know when he was first signed, was Do I think this is a player around whom the LA Galaxy can build a team? And can he be successful in MLS in terms of providing goals and assists? Will he be? Because, it's a difficult transition when you're coming from Europe. And he started his youth career in Europe. So it's not even like he was coming from Liga MX.
Right.
And I now believe that Giovani dos Santos is a player around whom the LA Galaxy can build their future teams. He's young. He can be productive for many years to come. He brings all those other intangibles that are attractive to the Los Angeles Galaxy in terms of his marketing and whatnot, due to his background and his relationship to El Tri. And I'm very positive. I feel really good. I don't care if he wins MVP. I'm just now convinced that he can be a player that the LA Galaxy have in their future for years to come, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes back to an article. I wanted to get to this even last week, and we ran out of time. There was so much to talk about. But it goes back to what you're going to do with Robbie Keane, and what we've seen this year with Robbie Keane and Giovani dos Santos is their inability to play together, and there have been some highlights of that, and there have been some lowlights. I see two players who, for better or for worse, both play almost exactly the same way, who like to be in the same space. And whenever you throw Steven Gerrard in there as well, he likes to be in that space too, as the central attacking midfielder as well. So you have these two guys, Robbie Keane and Giovani dos Santos. They're like water and oil. They don't mix. We haven't been able to see them really, explode together. But whenever Robbie Keane has been injured and not playing, it's been Giovani dos Santos. And that you should be, if anything is going to get taken away from this particular season, that's one of my top things, is that Giovani dos Santos, like you said, is a guy you can build around. So now it's about making sure that whoever you get in the offseason doesn't hamper Giovani dos Santos.
Or maybe doesn't duplicate his skill set. That would be, I would, if you want to go through like object lessons learned from this season, I could give you some lessons learned. And I would hope that I could impart them to someone who works for the LA Galaxy. But one of those is definitely to use your designated player slots in a way such that you have players in complementary skill sets.
Well, but that's any team. That's any team, anytime. Now, granted, I think Bruce Arena thought he could make the pieces work together. And maybe they could have if at one point they were ever really healthy at one point all at the same time and playing. This year, I think I went back and checked only 10 games that you had all three designated players who started the game. And then you can't.
I just don't even know. I am, having seen Giovani dos Santos play on the wing, he is a huge defensive liability. He does not defend, and Robbie Keane does not defend. Right. You can't have too many players in the field who do not defend. It's just unwise. And so I think, although it was an idea that he would play out wide, he can't play out wide. He's not defensively able. No,
and he's not. Although I will say that whenever he plays up top, his defense seems to be very good in terms of. But it's a different responsibility. I get it, 100%. I think there's some players on this team who have that issue, sort of regardless of where they play, and I think that's been the main reason that the defense has struggled, is that you've seen players in the midfield and in the outside back position that don't defend well, and that has caused the LA Galaxy defensive issues. I really believe that, and you're right. One of the things with Steven Gerrard is that you can't expect him to defend. So if you put him in there, you need somebody to backstop him. And if you're going to do that, you can't play somebody like Sebastian Lletget, although somebody tried to seriously convince me that Sebastian Lletget is a better defensive midfielder than he is maybe a box-to-box or an attacking midfielder.
No, he's not. He's better. I think he's a good central midfielder. That's my view of it, is that he's a very good sort of English school central midfielder. You know, I think that in some ways it's very apropos that he was raised in the West Ham Academy, because he embodies a lot of the traditions of an English soccer player who's a central midfielder.
Like what? What would be some examples of that?
Well, I don't really think of him as a box-to-box midfielder.
Okay.
I don't think he's not particularly mobile in the sense that he doesn't run up and down the field.
Okay.
But he is very good in terms of passing, right? So he's got good passing range, and he moves the ball very well with his feet. You and I have both commented on the fact that when he receives the ball, and almost at the same moment he receives the ball, he's sending the ball away to someone else.
Right.
And so I think that's a sign of someone who can be a really adept central midfielder in terms of their ability to, circulate the ball throughout the field. And that's something that, every central midfielder should be able to do.
No, I think you're right. You know, one of his biggest assets and also one of the biggest detriments is his ability to hold the ball and keep it from people. But that's also that gets him in trouble sometimes too. And if you're going to play him, say, as a defensive midfielder, you can't have him holding the ball and giving the ball away. So you can't have him backstop. I think, quite honestly,
I do think it's hard to dispossess him of the ball. That is something I will say about him, is that he gets a lot of physical. He's physically brutalized sometimes in games, and it's amazing how he holds onto the ball, and it is really hard to strip him.
Yeah, no, it certainly seems that way. I'm not going to disagree at all, and it's certainly interesting. You know, it's like one of those things for me that, you know, trying to find Steven Gerrard's, you know, best position, going back to this is that it pushes everybody else out of their best position. And, you know, maybe we found Sebastian Leget's best position as that central attacking midfielder or as that central midfielder.
Oh, I definitely think that I definitely want Sebastian Lletget going forward to be used in the midfield as a central midfielder. I really think it's his best position. On the wing, yeah, he can do it, but he's really not fast. He's not like, I really don't think he's a fast runner. I don't think that he's pacey. You know, there's a lot of reasons not to play him on the wing, but as a central midfielder, he's great. So, you know, let's put him there.
Right. And then the other problem is that if you play Steven Gerrard in that central midfielder role, and you have Robbie Keane, and you have Giovani dos Santos, you know, whenever you had Giassi Zardes too,
not defending, yeah.
It's a lot of people being pressed out of possibly their best position, and that's where everything sort of falls apart for me. That's where it all comes back to, you know, the LA Galaxy, and I wrote an article about this, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, maybe even more than that, maybe it was a month ago, where I said, you know, Steven Gerrard needs to not start anymore. He pushes too many people out of their best positions, and for the LA Galaxy, you're still trying to find your best starting 11, and you can't have the one guy who can only play sort of one position, which is kind of interesting to think that Steven Gerrard is, you know, pigeonholed into a single position, Wendy. You can't play him anywhere else, and if you try to go like a 4-4-2 without sort of that defensive backing, he gets beat defensively. So you
know what I think I could do? I think that I could give an object lesson and base it on business management practices from, you know, American history. Because every time that I think of all these mistakes the front office makes, and I keep thinking to myself, I wish there was someone who is familiar with business management history. Because when you talk about that, all I think about is, like, this is similar to a company that ignores a design flaw. Like Firestone in the early 1980s, you know, invested heavily in a new line of tires, but it subsequently was determined that it had a huge design flaw and that the company knew about it going back to 1972. And that was an object lesson for that industry, that, you know, you have to always be on the lookout for making sure there isn't a huge design flaw in what you're manufacturing. Right. And this is like the LA Galaxy has this design flaw, and it keeps ignoring it, and it keeps trying to alter, you know, its essentially product design in order to try and fix this thing. But it's not something that's like wrong with supply chain management. It's a problem with your design, and so it's a fundamental defect to your current lineup. You need to alter it.
Yeah, but it's also the fact that you would be really upset if Bruce just tried one lineup and continually tried to. He needs to try to tweak it to try to make it work. And
yeah, but we've tweaked it incessantly, and I think it's pretty clear that, you know, it doesn't work. I don't think that whatever position Steven Gerrard is in, although he's a genius player, wonderful, you know, English captain, Liverpool hero, you know, maybe he's just not right for the team.
Right. No, and, you know, it's...
No criticism of him. I know everyone in the press. He's the nicest guy in the world, a total gentleman, very professional, but maybe it's just not right, you know? Maybe it's just one of those things.
Well, I think that's probably the best way to put it out of everything. I think a lot of people want to say that Steven Gerrard doesn't care about playing soccer or doesn't care about the LA Galaxy, and I've never gotten that feeling around him. I've gotten that feeling about other players before. So I'm not saying, you know...
No, see, the thing about professional athletes is that they're sort of pathologically ego-driven, and I don't think anyone who cares as much about their reputation, about how they're perceived, about success. I mean, I don't think they would ever not care. I think it's much more likely that they would be subject to other character flaws than not caring. I think that, you know, all professional athletes, due to what you have to go through in order to find success, you are almost definitionally someone who is hyper competitive.
Yes. Almost.
Yeah,
Almost
almost.
everybody.
Not always. Not
Almost,
always.
I always go back whenever everybody talks about being like hyper competitive. Is like, for me, hyper competitive is like competing at everything all the time, and it doesn't matter. That sort of seems it. And the one person who sort of sticks out away from that is Landon Donovan, who is hyper competitive when he's on the soccer field.
He's an outlier, though.
Yeah,
he
he
is such an outlier.
That is
he defies so many stereotypes of the professional athlete that it's almost useless to use him as a frame of reference, because it's like he is so abnormal in terms of not only what motivates him, but also his self-perception. He seems like a guy with a lot of self-insight, which is not a characteristic that you typically find in professional athletes. They are not necessarily introspective, and he is a deeply introspective person.
Oh, ridiculously.
I know, he's like I'm sure he was like off on the beach in Tibet, thinking about his place in the universe and stuff like that. Not something that you'd necessarily find in professional athletes.
No, all very interesting. All right, what we're going to do, let's go ahead and take a break. We want to play this. We want to get to Dave Sarakin, who's going to be joining us here next. And so whenever we get back, we're going to be joined by Mr. Associate Head Coach Dave Sarakin. Talk to him about Dallas and about Houston and about everything else in between. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
Take me to your place. No, it's not too late to turn a scream into a whisper. Loveless and
Welcome back to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Josh Guesman, Miss Wendy Thomas. Wendy's going to take a little break here as we're very happy to welcome back one of the guys we always look forward to talking to, and we try to get him on the show as much as possible. Please welcome back to the show for about the umpteenth million time, Associate Head Coach, Mr. Dave Sarakin. Dave, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, it's always a pleasure, Josh.
Dave. It's been a long week, it feels like, because of the international break. No games for the LA Galaxy. I guess I'll start with the loss to Dallas. How much did that hurt from a team that I'm sure was really looking at trying to capture 3 points there?
So that's where you have to start with me, huh, kid?
We'll start there, and we'll get better. We'll get better. That's how it works.
No, listen. One thing we are is honest, and we didn't have our best day that day. There's no question about it. There's no secret that Dallas was an important fixture, especially late in the season and where the standings all settled in. And we went with the right intentions, but sometimes it's hard to explain, the 90 minutes when you think back to the effort that was required and the execution that was needed. We fell short. And we recognize that, which I think is the good thing. I think we had good, honest conversations about it. I really believe sometimes adversity / a loss can really point you in the right direction. And that's kind of how we've used that game. And since then, our focus has been great, and our confidence has not been shaken.
I go back to that, and after that loss, the LA Galaxy had a team dinner that was largely reported. I wanted to know, if that was part of, understanding what was wrong, or if that was just a group or gathering together just that would have happened regardless.
No, I mean, I think this was something that was kind of been talked about for quite a while, to get away from the soccer field and get the group together, and the timing of it just fell perfectly for us because Bruce, we like to do something like this towards the end of the year as we get to the playoffs, and the timing worked perfectly. I can't share too many stories of that night, but
Right.
I will tell you that we ate well, we drank a little bit, we told jokes, and it was tremendous group bonding. So the timing of it was good, and it kind of sort of pulled us together in a way that that maybe we wouldn't have been able to do it if we were just in StubHub every day. So it was nice. It was good.
That's good to hear. All right, so then was the break welcomed? You lose to Dallas, you do the team dinner. You have some guys who are on some injuries. Is this long sort of 2-week break? Is that a welcome thing, or do you think the guys would have preferred to get right back out on the field?
It's a good question. I can't speak for every player, but I think generally speaking, I'll speak for myself. I think it was a good time for a break. It was a time where, one of the things that as a coach you get frustrated with is because of scheduling, you don't have real training days in the middle toward the end of the year where you can have a nice week of building up and progression because you have midweek games. So I think the timing was good to give certain guys rest, to get into quality training, to see some video, to have meetings, to really point everybody in the right direction. And I think taking a step away can recharge the batteries in a good way. So yes, I think the break was good.
Well, now you look forward to Houston coming up on Sunday. The international break is over. Giovani dos Santos coming back from international duty. Robbie Keane and Steven Gerrard are up in the air. So all 3 designated players maybe have some question marks next to them. Is this team ready to play without any of their designated players, if that's what it comes down to on Sunday?
This team is very ready to play. I think, getting back to the break, I think we've had a great 2 weeks. I think it's ramped up certain guys. Obviously, Landon, this was great for Landon to address his fitness. The little niggling injuries certain guys had, we've cleaned up. We've had really good training. And the guys understand the importance of it. And, we will miss guys like Robbie and Steven. And yet I think I might have said this on your show. I really believe we're deep this year, and the
Right.
guys we can go to, who are more maybe blue collar. And I think that going into Houston, we have the expectations of winning that game. We're not going there to tie. We're going there to get our group going so that we're ready come playoff time.
Dave, I have to ask you this question, and it comes. I'm sure it's one of those questions that if I don't ask, I will get hounded for it. And so I want your opinion on it. Steven Gerrard in Liverpool right now went there for some treatment on his hamstring. For a lot of people, they're questioning sort of the timing of that trip. Can you give us any insight into going to Liverpool instead of just staying here in Los Angeles to get that treatment?
Well, as you should know, you can't believe everything you read, Josh.
Right.
And so, what I would say is that Jelle Van Damme went back to Belgium.
Right.
These are guys that are away from their families. Here was an opportunity, a 2-week break. So Steven didn't go back to rehab the hamstring as much as, yes, he was rehabbing, but it was time to get away, see his family, just like Jelle did, and it's important, for guys when their families aren't here who are Europeans. So a big part of him going back was, re-energizing and also reacquainting with his family so that when he comes back to us, mentally he's in a good state, and then hopefully physically he has done some work and will do more work when he gets back.
Excellent. All right, so there's a little clear up for some of our listeners. Hopefully everybody will listen to this and I'll stop getting questions. That's very unlikely for that to happen. All right, let's talk about Houston. They played in Seattle last night. We're recording on Thursday night. They played on Wednesday night. Seems like they expended some effort there up in Seattle. What did you see from Houston? What do you guys need to be careful of on Sunday?
Well, what I saw in Seattle is a team that hasn't given up on the year, for one, knowing that they're not in the playoffs.
Right.
They the common denominator with them is they compete. They're always a team that competes, and they're still competing. So we have to match that energy, whether they're playing for their jobs or whatever motivation they have, they're still pushing it. And to get a result in Seattle was pretty admirable, although you could argue Seattle probably should have won, but at the same time, Houston had their chances. So, you're going to have a team that's going to be motivated to beat the Galaxy like every team in the league is. They're at home. It's going to be an afternoon game. It's not going to be cool. It's going to be hot, so there's challenges there.
Right.
So yeah, it's going to be. It's not going to be a cakewalk. So people shouldn't look at their standings and go, "Oh, this is going to be an easy game." We're not looking at it that way.
Yeah, I don't think there is one in Major League Soccer right now, and certainly Houston fits that bill. They countered a lot against Seattle, but they were on the road. Do you expect possibly the same sort of counter attack thing from them, or are they going to be more possessive because they're at home?
I think they would likely be their first line of confrontation, I'll call it, on defending maybe a little higher than it was in Seattle. I think they'll come at us maybe a little more than they could have on the road in Seattle. And obviously being at home, usually teams are a little more aggressive, but their DNA is their DNA. I think their system won't be any different. They may sub in guys that didn't start on Wednesday,
right,
who were, they've had a busy week. This will be their third game in a week. So, we expect maybe a couple changes in their personnel. They had a guy look like he might have gotten injured, but I think their system will stay the same. Their pressure may be a little bit more than what we saw. So we'll be ready for that.
All right, Dave, only 2 games left. You have the Houston game on Sunday, and then the following Sunday you have FC Dallas at home for the LA Galaxy, the regular season finale there. How important are these next 2 games for the playoffs and, not just seeding, but for mentality-wise, feeling good about going into the playoffs?
Very important for both. We want to win Sunday and guarantee ourselves a home contest, in the first leg of the knockout game for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We want to build a team that's ready to get into the playoffs. It's always a good thing when you get results toward the end of the year for confidence. So yeah, it's very important. When we beat Houston Sunday and now we've got Dallas the following week, things may already be set, but we'll worry about that when we get to it. We have a little bit of a grudge against Dallas anyway, so I don't think it'll be hard for our guys to be up for that one.
Yeah, it should be great. Again, the LA Galaxy will play on Sunday versus the Houston Dynamo. Travel to Houston. Dave, we wish you all the luck. Safe travels over to Houston, and I'm sure that we'll talk to you again before this wonderful season is over, all right?
You got it, Josh. Thanks. Nice talking to you.
You too, Dave. All right, there's associate head coach Dave Sarakin joining us right here on Corner of the Galaxy. Always great to catch up with Dave. Great guy, really knowledgeable, dropping a little bit of knowledge on us about Steven Gerrard there as well. So all good information. All right. Whenever we get back, we have a whole bunch more to get to, including still talking about this Houston game. I know, kind of a crazy show we have going today. Lots of stuff still to discuss. You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. We'll be right back.
ready for some more Corner of the Galaxy? Don't forget to head over to the website for all the latest podcasts, news, and more. Visit us online at cornerofthegalaxy.com.
Hey, this is Chris,
This is Eddie. This is Jason.
and we're from Back Pocket Memory, and you're listening to Corner of the Galaxy.
Welcome back to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Josh Guesman, Miss Wendy Thomas back with you once again. Lots of stuff still to go over. Still lots of LA Galaxy news, speculation, fun, all of that stuff still in store right here on Corner of the Galaxy. And by the way, it should be noted that, you know, counting down here, Wendy, it's getting closer and closer to Josh's end of the season. As only
Josh is walking to playing.
Yeah, only 9 days until I get married on October 22nd. So, again, I tell that not to brag, but just that way everybody understands that there may be some changes after the 22nd. I will be at the game on October 23rd because my fiance is awesome and amazing. But then I'm out of town for 2 weeks as the playoffs start. And depending on how the LA Galaxy play, Wendy, I could miss the entire postseason for the LA Galaxy. So, it is one of those things. I've been here for covering the postseason since 2009, so I think maybe I've earned just a little bit of time off. But obviously, as I'm one of the main driving forces here, we'll see what we can come up with in terms of content, both for the website and for the podcast. I just wanted to let everybody know that, we'll do our absolute best. But I'll be away for 2 weeks, and I won't necessarily be concerned with a lot of things that are going on here. So,
No, everyone's entitled to a break.
yeah, this will be my 2 week break, and then I'll come back, and hopefully the LA Galaxy will be getting ready for MLS Cup. That's the hope.
Sure.
Keep hope alive, Wendy. Don't give up.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There you go. As Landon Donovan famously said, although I think he was quoting Dumb and Dumber. All right, so we want to get into some LA Galaxy news, and obviously there's been a bunch of it to go through. We've talked a lot about Steven Gerrard and sort of the problems that have plagued him so far. But we want to get to the LA Galaxy launching a girls' academy team as well. In fact, I should say... Yeah, I know you're really excited. And I'm excited about this too. It's a girls' academy teams. I shouldn't just say one. There's 3 new teams, the U14-15, U16-17, and U18-19. And the big deal with this, Wendy, is, and somebody said this, they said this may be the only fully funded girls' academy team in the U.S. Soccer Girls Development Academy League. And it's the first fully funded team by an MLS entity for the women's game, which is interesting. This is one of those things as a guy and looking at the LA Galaxy's mission statement of being the best Major League Soccer team in Major League Soccer.
Right.
This how in the big terms of things, in the big view of things, how does this help the LA Galaxy? And it doesn't help the senior team. But,
No, it doesn't.
But that doesn't mean that this isn't an amazing thing and something that could turn into something more, maybe.
Maybe. Perhaps. I mean, one of the 3 pillars of MLS is community, right? It's, that's one of the prongs on which MLS supposedly founds its philosophy. And so MLS, the LA Galaxy has done a really good job of, good works projects in the community, such as bringing soccer fields to local schools and whatnot. And whether or not the LA Galaxy ever plan on investing in women's soccer in like an NWSL franchise, the fact is that youth soccer is played by millions of young girls in this country, and that women's soccer is very popular in the United States, both as a sport for participation and also attendance, and that there's a lot of girls who would like to see their potential fully exploited.
Right.
And it's very difficult to do that when the landscape favors men, because there's more of a prospect of remuneration, that it's more financially rewarding to have a men's soccer team. And so I think it's wonderful because not only is it a fully funded academy, but as many people know, pay or play has been a huge issue in terms of compromising youth development for underprivileged youth.
Right.
And if you don't come from a wealthy family, the pay or play really impairs your ability to develop yourself as a player. And by making it fully funded, that means that any child from any background will have the same access to the to sort of develop their talents that anyone else would.
And for the LA Galaxy being in a hotbed of both girls and women's soccer and men's and boys.
So many great players.
Yeah.
Christian Press, Shannon Box, all these players, they came from Los Angeles.
Yeah, and because of that, and where they're at, you can also look at possibly diversifying and adding some diversity into the U.S. women's national team, or possibly even, and this is where a lot of people want to take it, and I think Wendy, you and I are both on the same page here, is possibly even taking it to the NWSL. Maybe the LA Galaxy could get an NWSL team, although I think that is probably a stretch and not necessarily why this was done.
I doubt this is why. I doubt they're going to do an NWSL franchise. One, because AEG lost money in with the LA Soul.
Right.
They paid Marta a huge contract when she was signed with them, and I think that Uncle Phil is, burned once, twice shy. He's not really interested in investing in women's soccer professionally. And the second thing is that Mia Hamm is a co-owner of LAFC,
right,
who's going to be launching, and she is, I think, very interested in an NWSL franchise. So, but for people who love women's soccer like me, I always find it refreshing because sometimes, on the rare occasion, I sometimes get grossed out by the men's game because male athletes are, not always wonderful.
Yes.
And women's soccer is so refreshing because there is a sense of camaraderie and good sportsmanship, which I really like in the women's game. And there's also some incredibly talented players, which I really enjoy seeing a women's soccer game. And so for people like me in Los Angeles, maybe they can go see the LAFC NWSL franchise if they launch one, and if the LA Galaxy decide to forego that option.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Listen, I would love for the LA Galaxy to be the ones to launch an NWSL team, just because I would add that to the Corner of the Galaxy stable. There would be no reason why I wouldn't, go and try to cover those games. That just makes the most sense. If it happens to LAFC, I can't necessarily do that. So
I know. I'm just saying for fans, for Los Angeles soccer fans, that it's good that they'll have the option, regardless of which team does it. I'm sure that there's local soccer fans who would like to see women's soccer, and I think there's a good chance in the near future an NWSL team will be in the Los Angeles area.
Very cool. I think it's great. I can't wait to see it. The girls will start playing and start competing fall 2017, so they got a year to put everything together. Again, we'll play in the U.S. Soccer Girls Development Academy League. That's where you can keep an eye on it. And if we have updates from that, as I'm sure there will be updates, we'll provide them right here to you, just as we try to do with any of the academy games that really make any highlights, that type of thing. So we will do that, and hopefully we'll hear a lot more. Listen, let's talk about Robbie Keane again. And we touched on it about Robbie Keane and his contract negotiations, and I think we've touched on it a bunch of shows. But I wrote an article saying why Robbie Keane shouldn't be a designated player, and not to make that a central point of this. But one of the things that I think everybody has noticed is how frustrated Robbie Keane has been this year. He hasn't played in many soccer games for the LA Galaxy this year. He still has 10 goals. But I would say that a majority of those he has been less than involved in overall, if you can say that about a goal scorer. It's at least not the Robbie Keane that we have seen. With him not necessarily having a contract going through, you would expect that you'd be getting the most of Robbie Keane out of this year, because he wants to prove to the LA Galaxy, and he's even said it, that he wants another designated player contract, Wendy. But I just think that, father time, his injuries, and, just his general play that he's been, for me, it hasn't proved it. And if you're looking for, somebody who's frustrated and somebody who could possibly be one of the reasons the LA Galaxy have not been good and have not clicked and not come together. I mean, you look at Robbie Keane. He's fighting for a contract. The LA Galaxy aren't going to... I don't think they're going to offer him one, Wendy. And if they do, it's a non-designated player contract. And, I mean, what does that do to a man like Robbie Keane?
I really have, in some ways, sympathy for both parties involved, because a professional athlete can only conceptualize the world with him at the center of it, because, obviously someone who is that driven, is also very self-involved. And I think that he probably has the opinion that he has contributed rightly so much to this team historically that he would like to base future negotiations on past performance. However, that being said, it's imperative that the team make it a priority to base its decision-making on what it needs for the future. And so this is yet another object lesson in business, I think. It's like, a company like, for example, Kodak in the early 1970s developed digital technology, and yet it refused to develop it because it was afraid that it would cannibalize film, which was its main stream of revenue. And yet a business or an organization or a sports team cannot be afraid of pursuing the future because it's trying to honor the past or pay homage to the past. And I have so much respect for Robbie Keane, and he's always going to be a legend of the LA Galaxy. Always, always. He's going to be one of the great legends of the team. But the LA Galaxy front office management cannot make the mistake of refusing to proceed forward and look forward because it's afraid that it's going to cannibalize its past. That's not the way a smart business manager conducts his organization.
Yeah, and quite honestly, you look at Robbie Keane, and again, you don't want to diminish anything that he's done, Wendy, for the LA Galaxy because it's been so monumental. Quite honestly, he's been the best international designated player to have ever played the game.
Everything you could win in MLS, he's won. He's won MLS Cup, Supporter Shield. He's won absolutely everything. He's been a captain. He's been, we could lionize him for days. He's incredible. That being said, you cannot reward him with a contract based on past performance.
No, you can't. You can't. And especially not, and we've gone over this so many times on this show, especially not as a designated player. A designated player spot is worth so much more than the money you pay for it. It doesn't matter how much you pay Robbie Keane, as long as it's over the max budgeted salary and you're not using TAM to pay it down and you have to use a designated player spot, you might as well call that spot $100 million because it doesn't matter. You take up a spot. It's a limited, finite number of things. So actually, you know what, Wendy, we have a call here. So let me get to this call, and it looks like it's going to drop you. We'll get right back to you. So here we go. 805, who's this?
Josh, is your best friend.
Scott. How's it going, buddy?
What's going on? Good. I have a question for you and Wendy.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about all the blah, 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 Steven Gerrard, does he care now, blah, blah. My question is, even if Gerrard and Keane, if they are what they are, or if they're not happy with the situation that's going on, why does that still affect the team? We talked about how there was, that whole dinner to potentially address any kind of issues that are going on in the locker room. But I just don't understand the concept. If one player is upset with his personal situation, that doesn't necessarily mean the rest of the tactical system that's put in place by the coach and the effort by the individual players would suddenly break down. So I just don't think that any of this is an excuse for why we haven't been playing well. So I don't know if you know, but if you can explain why that kind of is.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think your biggest issue here is that, especially on a team that relies on somebody like Robbie Keane, they rely on him to score, they rely on him as a leader. Whenever there's no leadership there, whenever there's a leadership vacuum, you can have problems. I don't know that, you look at sort of the composition of the team, Scott, and how you have the old Euros and the old Euros, you have like the younger guys, and then you have sort of like the older MLS vets, right? So you have like these three sort of distinct groups, and I believe if they're not getting together 100%, that you could have problems. And the bottom line is that you don't have to understand it. You're absolutely right. It shouldn't affect anything, right? But we can't explain what happens with teams that don't win all the time. And this right now, if there's problems in the locker room, because it's all speculation, we honestly don't know. People have been trying to figure out if there's issues or not. If there's problems, they could manifest themselves in so many different ways that affect the team in just little things, even in training. And then if training is off, does that affect the games? I mean, you could play that butterfly flapping its wings sort of theory there, and you have the hurricane in the Bahamas.
But that just seems like that's just a narrative that would sell stories or drive clicks.
It could be.
If Robbie Keane is unhappy with his contract, that doesn't mean that Alan Gordon and Mike McGee aren't trying as hard as they can to fight for their own contracts or their own pride in their game. And I don't know if I believe that. And when Gerrard and Keane and Gio are on the field, they try as hard as they can. I know that. I watch them play.
Right. But if you're not getting stuff from them and they're still starting, right, then that affects the other team and the fact that, hey, these guys aren't trying that hard, or they're dogging in practice, or they're constantly complaining, or all these things, yet they're still playing, and I'm not playing, so it really doesn't matter what I do. That's how it all comes down. All right, Scott, I'm going to let you go because I've left Wendy out of this. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. All right, let's see if we can get Wendy back here. All right, Wendy. Scott, I know it was a long time. Scott and it was Scott, and we were arguing about stuff, but he was saying that he doesn't necessarily believe the narrative behind the fact that, one player could ruin a locker room, or one player, not trying, or even if he says, and I agree with him, he says, Robbie Keane is trying, Steven Gerrard is trying, they're just not capable of doing stuff anymore. How is that going to ruin it? And he says he feels like it's more of a narrative.
Well, who said it's one? I don't know if it's one player.
Yeah, and
I don't
right.
necessarily, but I'm not trying to espouse that it's a one player, that that Robbie Keane is poisoning anything. I'm just
Right.
saying that there's clearly a divide in the locker room. That could be several players versus other players. It could be an issue of people trying to get contracts finalized and not being given contracts. It could be the fact that some people are reaching the end of their career. And I think that it's really, given the psychopathology of professional athletes, it can be very difficult for them to, in a gracious way, wind down their careers
Right.
without wanting to extend it in a way that is maybe not feasible. But I'm not trying to say anything bad about Robbie Keane. I respect him. I admire everything he has done in MLS, and everything he's done for the LA Galaxy. I just think that he shouldn't get another designated player contract.
I agree. It's like I could go up and shake Robbie Keane's hand and say, thank you for everything that you've done for the LA Galaxy, for the sport of Major League Soccer. You could do that as a fan, walk up to him, and you can also understand that the road ends now. It's that you can't give him another designated player contract. And if you wanted to, you could give him a lower level contract, because I think he would still be useful as a super sub.
But he wouldn't take it.
But it would be difficult I would find it difficult for him to do it. But
anyone who has seen Robbie Keane play for Ireland, who has seen him he flies for thousands of miles to play for Ireland for 10 minutes. He is a deeply proud person. Okay, he is very. I don't think that he would accept it, because I don't think that his view of who he is and what he's entitled to is consistent with maybe what management's view is and what their view has to be. And I don't think that either party necessarily is liable or wrongheaded or anything like that. I just think that it's the nature of professional sports that players sometimes come to the end of the career, and it's a very difficult thing to swallow cognitively and emotionally.
It says the one, I can't remember the celebrity couple. It's a conscious uncoupling. That's really what needs to happen.
Yeah.
They just need to everything. Hey,
Gwyneth
thank you.
Paltrow and Chris, what's his name? Chris Martin.
Chris
right?
Martin. Yes. There it is. Conscious uncoupling.
It's an uncoupling.
That's all it is. That's all. We're not breaking up. We're just uncoupling, Robbie. We still love you. No problems. All right. Let's go on here, because we're getting about 12 minutes left in the show. LA Galaxy 2, we've already talked about. They bounced out of the playoffs. I don't know if we covered that or not. I left it on the notes because I wasn't quite sure. So LA Galaxy 2 got bounced out of the playoffs, and that's the end of their season. Still, I think there's one or two players who still could possibly impact the LA Galaxy's roster next year, and it's stuff that we can definitely talk about and move forward. The playoff scheduling and everything that's coming down in terms of the schedule. This Sunday, you have two separate sort of times that are going to kick off for these games that go on. The Western Conference basically is going to kick off at 12 p.m. Pacific time, and then the Eastern Conference is going to kick off at 12 p.m. Pacific time, and the Western Conference is going to kick off at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And all these teams will be playing inside their own conferences. So it's East versus East, West versus West. Everybody's playing this Sunday and next Sunday. So that's why the LA Galaxy will be playing a game at 2 p.m. Pacific time on the West Coast because they have to match up with all the other West Coast games that go off at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And quite honestly, it's ridiculous to me that they do this for the LA Galaxy, who will be playing an afternoon game in Houston. And as Dave Sarakin said, it's not going to be cool, so they'll have to deal with the heat. Maybe it's a good thing then, perhaps, Wendy, that it looks like Steven Gerrard obviously is going to be missing this game. I think everybody's sort of come to that conclusion already. Robbie Keane looks likely to miss this game as well. He also has been plagued by injuries throughout this season, as we've talked about. I do not expect him to play. Giovani dos Santos is up in the air in terms of international duty because he just came back. He was running today at training. He ran the whole practice, so it doesn't look like he's injured. It's just a matter of fatigue for him. But the LA Galaxy will face off and travel to Houston against the Dynamo at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Spectrum Sportsnet, Spectrum Deportes is where you can find that game on television. You heard me talking with Dave about it, Wendy. The Seattle Sounders and Houston Dynamo battled to a 0-0 draw. There was a red card in that game for Seattle when Ozzie Alonso and Will Bruin got into it. I was really hoping that Will Bruin would get a little more angry at some of those things and get a red card as well, but he did not. Just a yellow card. The big deal for the LA Galaxy, Yellow Van Dam suspended because of yellow card accumulation, so you won't have JVD there. And then it is AJ De La Garza and Jeff Laurentowicz are both on yellow card duty, yellow card watch as well, so they could miss the Dallas game if they get a yellow card in this game. So there's a lot of plot lines playing, a lot of things going on, but Houston is the last place team in the Western Conference, and when you look at the stats, Wendy, and you try to compare everything together, they don't look that different from the LA Galaxy.
No. Well, we've had a really remarkably poor season. So that's why I'm thinking more about the future in terms of how the LA Galaxy should reboot, because I think that given current circumstances, it's unlikely that the Galaxy are going to go too far in the playoffs. That's a speculation of mine. It's a little prognostication on my part. I don't see us going too deep in the playoffs, because I think for a team to go really far in the playoffs, they have to be sort of peaking. They have to be really hot. Their designated players really have to be firing in all cylinders. And I don't see the Galaxy in that situation. So I'm sort of being cautiously observant. Now I'm at the point where I'm sort of like watching these games for like more thinking about like, how would I change this? What do I think we should do? So, I mean, I think it'll be nice to win, but ultimately my hopes for this season have been notably dampened, I would say.
And I can understand that. If you look at what the LA Galaxy need to do in this game, though, Houston, if they're going to do anything, they have to win the game. First of all, because if they lose and Seattle or RSL win, or if they both win, the LA Galaxy could find themselves in 5th position. If the LA Galaxy win, they basically guarantee themselves a spot in that hosting that first round playoff game. So you'd want them to have that home game, because I think we've all agreed that the LA Galaxy do not want to go on the road like they did last year and have to play one game against a team like Seattle, which, by the way, is very much in the wheelhouse for the LA Galaxy to be matched up against. You'd much rather host Seattle or host Sporting Kansas City or host Portland, depending on how it all comes in. And that's that's the interesting part of all this. I will say this. I've been watching the live standings. Currently, right now, Colorado is winning their game against, I believe, San Jose. It's in the 87th minute. They're up 2-1. And if they finish this out and they win, they are the new Supporter Shield leaders at 57 points above FC Dallas at 56 points.
Hey, Colorado, way to go, buddies.
Yes.
Come on.
So
they had such a miserable team last year. It's kind of nice to see.
It is. I just don't want to see them win another MLS Cup on an own goal, because I don't think anybody can possibly handle that. I feel
so bad for Colorado fans, though. Last year watching them was so sad, and now they're so happy. It's kind of heartening to see.
It is nice. It's a nice story until they win something like Portland, and then they get obnoxious, and then you're like, okay, you need to simmer down now.
They're just obnoxious.
Simmer down. Although it would be fun to see Colorado have 2 MLS Cups and Seattle still have 0. So if
Colorado does win the Supporter Shield, that
Right.
means that FC Dallas doesn't, which means FC Dallas cannot win the treble,
Right.
which means that the LA Galaxy could conceivably still be the team that wins a treble.
Yes, that would all that's all happen. But you also worry about CCL spots and where the LA Galaxy could finish, although they can't finish in second, so it probably doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, so
I
really.
don't think we need to worry about that this year, Josh.
I was really hoping for the offset, whenever FC Dallas already has a spot in and they go to the team with the next best record, it's like, oh, here, you guys take it. And it's like, thanks for the CCL spot. One of those things. I was very much looking for that.
I think I've moved into lesson learning time. I'm interested in
I don't want you
lesson learns.
I don't
Let's learn some lessons.
I don't want you to give up yet. I think
I'm not giving up. I'm just getting more reflective. I want, there's a certain point where I start thinking about like, yes, I'm going to root for the team, but I also want to think about what I would do with this team to make sure this doesn't happen again, because I feel like it's been a huge problem with the Galaxy recently of front office or management being calcified in their thinking, and if I could use another business metaphor, being American auto manufacturers in the early 1970s when they were making the Gremlin and the Chevy Vega, because they were using the same business model, not realizing that there was competitors in Japan such as Toyota and Honda that were innovating on the whole automotive business. And right now, FC Dallas is Toyota, and the LA Galaxy is GM and Ford. And our thinking has become so calcified because the managers are doing exactly what they did in the automotive industry, which is that they think that the same line of thinking which brought them to their level of success is what will continue to bring them success.
Right.
But that doesn't work when industries change. When industries change, you have to change your level of thinking.
Yep, absolutely. No, and you could shift it. I think it's interesting that FC Dallas is Toyota and they play at Toyota Park. By the way, I just wanted
Oh man, I did
Synergy.
that accidentally.
It's
I didn't
synergy.
even do that on purpose.
synergy. It's all coming together all round and round. Anyway, the LA Galaxy will face off against Houston. Houston did rest their leading goal scorer. You had Mauro Manotas. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. But Mauro Manotas was sat on the bench for at least 73 minutes and then came into the lineup for Houston. So they were keeping an eye a little bit on the LA Galaxy here in terms of still having somebody available. And as you heard Dave Sarakin say, likely there is going to be some personnel changes for Houston. Will Bruin, I thought, was actually pretty dangerous. You know, Dave said that Seattle probably should have won the game, and he's probably right. And then Houston probably also should have won the game. And, you know, they hit the post a couple times. So, Houston, even though they are at the bottom of the Western Conference, is not a cakewalk here at all, not even for a second. And, you know, I think it's going to be interesting as we look. You know, Steven Gerrard's not going to be here. You know, will we ever see Steven Gerrard in the LA Galaxy kit again? Because, you know, as it came out and as we were recording the show, we actually there was a little update on just Steven Gerrard, and Bruce Arena said to Sportsnet, to Spectrum Sportsnet today at training, Steven had a reoccurrence of his hamstring injury. He's obviously out for a bit. He said he could do at home what he could do here as well. It was okay for him to depart for a week or two. A week or two puts him basically at the end of the regular season, and if you're at the end of the regular season, then, you know, you don't have Steven Gerrard. Is he even going to play in the playoffs? You know, the Steven Gerrard era for the LA Galaxy could be over, and I don't think anybody's going to, you know, really worry about that. But
no tears shed. I wish him a bon voyage, and nice. It was nice to have fun in Liverpool and coaching for Klopp. He's a great. I think that Jurgen Klopp would be a great person to coach for.
Yeah. So absolutely. So anyway, that's just where we're at right now with the LA Galaxy. Keane's not going to play, more than likely. Gerrard is not going to play. Giovani dos Santos is a question mark. It's going to be up to guys like Sebastian Lletget and Emma Boateng, which, by the way, we had our 14-year-old writer Davis Rothman did an article on Emmanuel Boateng, and Emmanuel commented on the article itself and said that Davis is the smartest 14-year-old he knows. So if that's not a ringing endorsement to go read that story on cornerofthegalaxy.com, I don't know what is. But yeah, this is where you're at. You're going to see, like I said, no Yellow Van Dam. So Daniel Steres is going to be there. So it's big game for Josh to see if Steres can match up to what Josh expects here. So AJ De La Garza is probably going to be in that lineup. You're going to have Robbie Rogers out on the right-hand side. Ashley Cole more than likely will be on that left-hand side. What happens in the midfield? Jeff Laurentowicz and Sebastian Lletget more than likely. Raul Mendiola, is he going to play on the right-hand side? I think he does. Is Landon Donovan now fit enough to start? That's a question that should be asked as well. Dave Sarakin,
I hadn't even thought about that.
Dave Sarakin said that Landon really got some fitness in during this break, this international break. So is he healthy enough to start? Can you go 70 minutes with Landon? 70 minutes with Landon is better than 20 or 30 minutes with Landon. But is he going to have the same impact along 70 minutes as everything else? These are all the questions that are just like streaming through my mind as you look at the LA Galaxy going up against Houston on Sunday. And if they win this game and everything's sort of wrapped up, there's a good chance that Dallas might not even mean anything. Which will be great for a home season finale because why would you want to see a competitive game being played? That was sarcasm, just in case anybody was checking. But at the same time, it would mean that the LA Galaxy already know where they sit, and so everything else is just about who they're going to play and when that game is. So again, all this stuff up for grabs, Wendy. It's all coming to a head. This is it. 2 more games of the LA Galaxy season, a long season for very many of us. It's hurt a lot of people, I think, this year, the fact that this team is so talented and cannot get anything done, and they're still third in the Western Conference, but I don't know that anybody has any confidence in them, and I don't know that changes against Houston. All right, Wendy, your prediction for Houston as we get on out of here.
I'm going to predict a draw since we've been good at those this year.
Yeah, why not? Add another draw to the lineup there. That sounds like a perfect way to almost end 2016 for the LA Galaxy. 2 draws to end out the season probably wouldn't be completely out of line. The LA Galaxy might even set a record. We have to go back and see how many draws there were. And everything else that happens in between. All right, let's take one call. We got somebody calling at the end, so let me see. Let's see who this is. It is 909. Who's this?
Hey, Josh, what's up? It's Javi in Dallas.
All right, Javi, you're right at the end of the show, buddy, so what do you got?
I know, I've got a little time. Just real quick, my prediction after bitter tweets all day is that we pull a Portland-like end-of-season change in the lineup. Steven Gerrard's gone. And we go through the playoffs on fire and win MLS Cup. There you go.
I love it. All right, thanks, Javi. Thanks for calling. All right, Javi predicted that the LA Galaxy stomp Houston and go on to win MLS Cup. I like Javi's thinking.
I like it. I like it.
I mean, it's not going to happen, Javi, but I enjoy the optimism at least.
I like it.
For me, the LA Galaxy do get a win. It's a 1-0 or 2-0 win. I think the defense can handle Houston, although they have some dangerous players out there. But, I mean, the big question is where do the LA Galaxy end in the lineup and everything else. Schedule for next week. I don't know what it is. All right. I have a wedding to plan. I've got it written down as having some shows. There's a good chance there might not be a show next Thursday. So if that's the case, you'll know why.
I'm surprised you're as together as you are. My brother got married 4 months ago. He was loopy by the time he was 9 days out from his wedding.
I'm a little loopy. But I'm normally that way on the podcast, so it shouldn't surprise anybody. And, that's one of those things. So we'll just have to see how that schedule goes. All right, Wendy, tell people where they can find you. We'll get on out of here.
Oh, you can find me at Corner of the Galaxy and American Soccer Now and on Twitter at Bardsblog.
All right, and if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuesman, JGUESMAN. And, of course, you can go to at Galaxy Podcast Forum there 99% of the time. That's me. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com and our shop where you can buy all sorts of wonderful trinkets and show your appreciation for the show, and we certainly appreciate it if you do. cornerofthegalaxy.com/shop is where you can get that. Listen to our podcast. Please tell all your friends about us. We've been doing a record number of traffic on both the podcast and the website. We just want to continue that, and you help with that so much. All right, LA Galaxy face off against the Houston Dynamo at BBVA Compass Stadium. Spectrum Sportsnet, Spectrum Deportes, Sunday, October 16th at 2 p.m. For Wendy Thomas, I want to thank Dave Sarachin for coming on. I'm Josh Guesman, and you've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a good one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.